That is the purest personification of anti-Semitism right there. That's what it is.
Well,
he's just insulting him.
That promotes supremacy.
He's just insulting him, and Dan just sits there, just like doesn't care. What's going on, guys? In this video, we are going to be breaking down Dan Bilzerian's interview with Piers Morgan. I know I'm a few months late to the party, but I saw this and I was like, this is the perfect example of douche behavior. And if you're new to the channel, by the way, a douche is basically like, it's kind of like Zen masculinity. It's a guy who, you know, he lives authentically to himself. He's very much in this space of like, I'm not going to be controlled by society. I'm going to do what I think's best for me. I'm going to say what I think and believe what I think is true. I'm not going to be controlled in any way. And they realize that they've got this one life here on earth and they're not going to waste it being controlled by everybody else. They're going to go do what they want to do. And so really, I think what we're going to do is this is going to be the start of a new series we're going to do on the channel, basically, where we're going to break down different douches' behavior, because I think it's easier to see what it's like to be a douche through demonstration rather than me just constantly telling you what a douche is. I can keep making those videos, but I think this is going to be a good addition to help you guys understand what is a douche, what does a douche look like, how can I start acting more and more like a douche. So we're going to get into it here. And I also want to say what we're studying here, I want you guys to pay attention to this. This is not actually about the substance. The substance is relevant only in that it displays a certain behavior quality that we want to adopt. It's not actually about what is said in the interview. This is a douche breakdown, not a political breakdown, okay? A douche can really think whatever. A douche is not an ideology. You can be pro-Israel or pro-Gaza and be a douche. You can be a pro, Kamala douche. I don't know how many of them there are realistically, but like you could be in theory a pro Kamala douche. You could be a pro Trump douche. Like you can be all kinds of things and be a douche. It's really about coming from that space of not needing the world to tell you who you are, being grounded and good with yourself, and going out and living the life that you want to live, the best life possible for you, and going after that. Okay. And so what we're going to study here really is just, it's so interesting to note here Piers Morgan's behavior in comparison to Dan's just brazen douche behavior. I'm not sure there's a better example of a douche on planet Earth than Dan Bilzerian. Honestly, I recommend reading his book if you want to study douche behavior. So let's get into it.
The eighth Arthur at the Round Table, Elvis Presley. History and popular culture has given us many famous kings, none of them quite like Dan Bilzerian, known to millions of people as the king of Instagram. A superstar poker player, he racked up a vast following by documenting his unfettered hedonism, a lifestyle of beautiful women on beautiful yachts and beautiful places. Some say he was Andrew Tate before Andrew Tate, but Dan Bilzerian says that life is behind him now. The king is dead. He's back with a new outlook, a new agenda, and some very controversial opinions.
What I want you guys to note here is that Pierce is your classic heckler, guys. And this is an important thing to understand if you're going to be a douche, if you're going to carry yourself in this way, is you're going to deal with haters. You're going to deal with hecklers. Even if you're not famous, it's going to be your parents. It's going to be an old friend. It's going to be some troll from your high school who's talking shit about you. Like if you live like a douche, you are going to get haters. And Pierce is your classic internet heckler. He might be the most just like nauseating person to me on the entire internet, where he does this thing where he just like, one, he doesn't actually believe in anything. He's anti-douche, right? Like this is why this is such a great correlation. We've got the ultimate douche, Dan Bilzerian, and the anti-douche, Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan believes nothing. He just says whatever's going to get clicks. His whole thing is to try and instigate arguments. He flip-flops on things all the time, depending on what the mood is from the popular culture. He is the opposite of a douche. And so you get this contrast. And so he does the classic media thing, which again, you're going to get as a douche, which is like the kind of like ad hominem attacks, where you're like in this thing where you set things up in a certain way to try and make the person look bad. He's a this, like Andrew Tate gets this all the time. He's a, sexist. He's a whatever. Trump got this all the time. Like if you're a douche, you're going to get that like thing thrown at you. They're going to call you this thing, hedonism. And like the whole thing's framed in this way. And I don't even think Dan would deny that he was a hedonist, but like the framing of this is this guy is this kind of like wild, like sex addict, degenerate guy who's like, it's all framed in this certain way. And it's not necessarily false in this case. It's more just like that's the setup. Dan hasn't even been introduced on screen yet, and you've already preloaded this whole thing for people to think this way about him. And this is this thing that, again, you're just going to have to learn to deal with it if you're a douche and not get emotionally reactive to it. And it's just going to be haters, right? I have haters. I'm not even that like public of a person. You know what I'm saying?
Well, welcome to Uncensored. I kind of feel if I'd interviewed you 4 years ago, we'd have had a very different interview. You're at the height of your kind of hedonistic Instagram life. There were women everywhere, yachts everywhere, guns everywhere, drugs everywhere. It was a very different lifestyle to the one you have now. So my first question is, who is the new Dan Bilzerian, and why have you given up the other guy?
This is so key, guys.
Well, I think I took hedonism to the end of the earth, and I just realized that it didn't bring me happiness. So I started focusing on things that I like to do, and did less of that.
Notice how with Dan right here, this is why this is so key. A douche is not in this whole space of apologizing for his behavior. A douche does not apologize for things. So, like, you can see, like, Piers is trying to, like, this whole time, like, get Dan to kowtow to social pressure. He's supposed to, like, Dan's supposed to kowtow and be like, hedonism's bad, I shouldn't have done that, like, be very apologetic about it. There's no apology in Dan's tone for this. He's like, yeah, fuck it. I was banging 9 girls a day. I was doing all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's what I wanted to do. And then I figured out I didn't like it. And so I stopped doing it. This goes back to a point I made several videos ago where I was talking about the douche. And I talked about how the douche is somebody who they believe strongly in what they believe, but they're also willing to change. A douche is somebody who will speak with absolute 100% conviction in their beliefs, but the moment that you show them they're wrong, they will change directions without emotion, and then they will absolutely believe in this new path with 100% conviction. And this is what Dan has done. He was absolutely committed to the hedonistic lifestyle. He figured out that wasn't the right path, switched course. There's no like repentance needed, because who does he need to apologize for? He was just living his own life. He didn't hurt anybody in the process of doing this. And he just said, yeah, that's not for me. Switch course. There's no crying about it, no wallowing in it, all this bullshit. He's just like, yeah, okay, on to the next thing, right? That's such a way to live it as a douche. And especially like you guys who want to be entrepreneurs in the douche world, or I mean, even if you're like dealing with women as a douche, like you're going to have to look back and look at like failed relationships with women, or a date that didn't go the way you wanted to go as you were learning how to do this stuff. Or again, with businesses, a business didn't work out. Like you can't be wallowing in this shit. A douche is just like, oh, fuck that up. Okay, whatever. On to the next one. Lesson learned, right? It's very much like that. And you have to have that attitude if you want to move quickly through life and actually like make sure you're living a life you're happy to be living.
I read that you were at your peak with the women, for example. If you only slept with 2 women a day, you thought that was a disappointing off day. And now you're down to just 1 woman. That's a pretty dramatic shift in your lifestyle, Dan.
This is also real quick. You can tell with Piers, like what he's doing, and you'll see this as we go into the rest of the video, is Piers, he's got this snide kind of way of talking about this shit. You know, he's like patronizing him almost, or like it's like backhanded compliment, like, oh, you were sleeping with 9 women. Like, he's like, you silly little boy, kind of like he's trying to like put him in this spot. You can just feel it with the vibes, and he's doing all of this to like set him up, and then just start like ad hominem attacking him on a bunch of shit. That's basically what he's doing here, and you can just see it. And Dan's just like, Dan knows this. Dan can tell. Like Dan has seen this guy on the internet before. He knows that Piers Morgan does not like him. So he's looking at this, but he doesn't give a fuck. He's like, I don't give a fuck what this guy thinks of me. He's like, okay, ask me the question. Yeah, fuck it. Like this is what it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was up to 9 at one day at one point, and it was just, you know, it was.
Notice he's not apologizing. How many of you guys, if somebody actually said that, you'd be like apologizing sort of in your voice for fucking 9 women in one day? Again, the douche can be a married man and the douche can be Dan Bilzerian. It's not about sleeping with a ton of women. It's about doing what you think makes the most sense for you and doing what you want to do with your life. But there's no apology for that. 9 women, he's like, yeah, I slept with 9 women, whatever. Like, it's just so nonchalant. It's like the douche is Zen masculinity. He's just chill. It's chill. It's nonchalant as fuck.
It was a lot. I think a lot of that is probably fueled by insecurity from high school, not getting as many women as I wanted. And like I said, I just kind of took the pleasure seeking to the end of the earth. And with pleasure, I think it's kind of functions like a drug, to where you need more to get the same feeling. And then eventually you have to do it to not feel like shit. And so, yeah,
Notice how Dan can, right there's so much gold in this. Dan can talk about his high school past and there's no emotion involved in it. He's just like, yeah, like I didn't get any girls in high school and I felt insecure about it. And so I wanted to compensate with that by sleeping with a bunch of women. It's like he knows himself very well and he's good with himself. And most people, how many people do you hear out there who are still wallowing in some shit that happened to them in high school? You know what I'm saying? And like, it's just, as a douche, you got to get over this shit. It's like shit happens in life, right? We've all got bullshit that's happened to us. And like the douche is just like, yeah, water under the bridge. Again, you're going to, if you start a business, you're probably going to fail the first time. You go on a date with a girl, she's probably going to not be interested in you the first time you go on a date because you just don't have the right mindset. Like if you're constantly in this thing where you're defined by your past in this negative way and letting it bother you, like you're just never going to get ahead. You have to be in this space where you're just like, yeah, whatever, like that, it is what it is. Like, I'm sure I'm motivated by, you know, negative forces in some way. Like I felt like I just to be honest, like in high school, like I wanted to be more popular than I was. Like, I think this is something a lot of guys relate to. It's like, part of me is probably motivated by a desire to get some sort of validation that I wish I'd gotten when I was younger, right? Like that kind of stuff just drives us and there's no shame in that. And this is like, there's no shame in Dan. He can say on one hand, yeah, I slept with 9 women. There's no shame in saying that. He can also say, yeah, I didn't get any girls in high school, and there's no shame in that. And he can just talk about himself openly in this way. Like Kanye's great at doing this as well. Like Kanye will just say whatever, and there's no shame or apology in his voice.
Just cut off the hedonism.
You even disappeared from Instagram for nearly a year. You only came back in May. Why did you do that? What was going on in your world in that period?
Well, I mean, I was writing a book. I think that was a, big focus, and that took a lot of time. And then I was just pretty much over it. I looked at social media like a video game that I beat and that, everybody else wanted to play. And I was just kind of tired of playing. And the only reason I really came back was because I felt like I had this big platform and I really disagreed with what was going on in Israel, that we were funding this genocide. And so I felt like I had an obligation to use my platform to say what I, thought was right.
All right, this is when we're going to really start getting into the juicy stuff here. So a couple of things real quick about this, though, is Dan Bilzerian, I'm telling you guys, you should really read his book if you want to understand how to be a douche. His whole life is just douche mentality, right? He was just really like, fuck it, we ball kind of energies. Like, we're just going to do what's the best story. I'm going to do that, right? When you read the book, you'll realize that like he got famous just to get women. He was like, oh, I think this will get me more chicks. And like, he just did it very matter-of-factly with no fucks given. And then once he was done with it, he was done with it, right? And this is another element of the douche where I've talked about where the douche, he lives life in such a way where he takes it serious in a certain way, in that he's like, hey, I've got this one life here on earth and I'm not going to waste it on some bullshit. So he's like, okay, I've got one life here. I'm not going to climb some corporate ladder that I don't want to do and like make a little bit of money and like, just do the like normie kind of lifestyle. He's not going to do that. He's like, I can do whatever I want on this one life that I've got. And I'm going to do some cool shit with it. But then on the other side, he's not taking life seriously, in that if shit doesn't work out, he's like, yeah, whatever. Like, I mean, recently Dan Bilzerian talked about how his stances on Israel have cost him $800 million because his company, he got forcibly removed from the ownership of his company. And so he lost basically $800 million worth of net worth from this experience. And when he was asked about it, he kind of like chuckled and was like, yeah, whatever. Like he's just like, you're not going to control me with money. And he just doesn't care that much about it, despite clearly caring on the one hand. He's like, yeah, I want to be rich and have fun and do all this shit. But he loses it and he's like, whatever. And why is he able to do that is key, is because so many people, they define their self-worth based on stuff outside of them. Whereas the douche has all the outside stuff for the fun of it. He's like eventually the douche gets to this point where he's not dating women to validate himself. Sure, maybe it starts that way, but eventually he's just not validated by the women. He's just doing it because he wants to. He's making money not to validate himself. He's making money because it would be fun to have a lot of money. He's doing what he just thinks would be the coolest life, basically. But if it doesn't work out, he's still like, his sense of self-worth is within him. He's like not questioning who he is. He's grounded in that. And that is such an important place for you guys to get to, is where you're just playing with the world. You're like, cool. It would be cool to make money, but if it doesn't happen, fuck it. Who cares? Right? Like that's the way the douche looks at things.
Well, let's talk about some of that, because you've been very vocal about Israel in particular. Even when Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas, was killed by the IDF, you were out lauding him as a hero. To most people, he's the despicable head of a terrorist organization that perpetrated on October the 7th one of the worst terror attacks in modern history. What's heroic about that?
Well, I think when you look at it in a vacuum, it's a very different picture. It's kind of like if I, raped your mother and I kicked you in the nuts 3 times and then you punched me in the face and everybody just wanted to focus on you punching me in the face. I think that would be a very different conversation than when you looked at it, the whole of what happened and the whole.
This is so funny. It's just like he's so funny to me because I raped your mother, kicked you in the nuts 2 times. Like just how he says that on TV. And again, he just does not care. He's just like, yeah, fuck it. And then like he's getting ready to say a bunch of shit that literally ends up getting him thrown off a company. And he's just like, there's no emotion in any of it, right? Like he's just sitting there like, yeah, fuck it. Like whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's so just like, it's such a refreshing place to be in mentally. Like when you just don't care what other people think of what you have to say. And also you'll notice he says this with absolute certainty. There's no hesitation. There's no kowtowing. Like the douche is just so focused on what do I believe is true. And if it's wrong, fine, I'll change my opinion. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, what are people going to think of what I have to say? Like, how gay is that, guys? Like to sit around worrying about if people like what you're saying. Like, why do you care? Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
What happened was Nakba. That's where it started. You have 750,000 Palestinians that got displaced. And then you've got multiple, acts of terror, in my opinion, on Israel's side that would make October 7th look like nothing. So to me, I think it was a retaliation. And I think that Hamas is a resistance organization. And I think that Israel is a terrorist.
When did Israel kill 1,200 people in a single day and wound nearly 7,000?
Well, I mean, you have, Nakba, there was, 15,000 people killed during Nakba. I mean, there was Sabra and Shatila. I mean, that was 3,500 civilians. Then you have 2014, they killed 1,500 civilians, 500 plus were kids. I mean, so any one of those days would have been much worse than October 7th, but nobody really talks about
those
that.
Didn't happen in a single
day. And October 7th is not nearly as bad as what they say.
Well, those didn't happen in single days, as you know.
Well, I mean, you have, Sabra and Shatila, that was 3,500 people. So that was basically 7 October 7ths. And October 7th, I think the numbers get inflated a lot too, because you're not taking into account that it was only 650 civilians. And there was the Hannibal Directive that was employed. And the Hannibal Directive is when the military is basically killing civilians so that they aren't taken as hostages. And, that had to be hundreds of people. So I would argue that it was less than 500 civilians that were killed. And to me, that is much less than what, the Israelis have been doing to the Palestinians.
But you see what's going on also. And this is why I picked this clip. Like I said, this has not necessarily got a ton to do with the actual debate. It's like you can think what you want about that, but the reason I picked this is because what he's saying is so politically incorrect. Like you just know like shit's gonna hit the fan for him for saying it, and his nonchalance to say it. Okay, because he prioritizes the truth over other people's opinions or the consequences of what he says, right? And this doesn't mean that you go around like somebody with fucking like Tourette's or some shit and just like start spouting shit off that you can't like back up, right? Like he's spitting facts here. Like again, if somebody like maybe if he was dealing with somebody who really knew the issue, they could debate him back on these kinds of things. But you'll just see like this is why I picked something that was politically incorrect to make this point here is you can't just it's anybody can say the truthful thing that nobody disagrees with, right? The sky is blue. Nobody's going to fucking care. You start saying this kind of shit, like people get really mad at you. And this is when you find out who a douche is, right? On any side, again, like it's really just about you say the truth. It's like everybody's got these things that we're thinking underneath our like underneath our conscious mind. And it's just that Douche is the one who kind of articulates it and just says it, right? Andrew Tate escaped the Matrix. You know, just like people have these underlying things. Like when I tell you guys, hey, the normal life path doesn't work for you, that resonates so much because you know it. And I just point it out to you just right in front of you. I show you the fluorescent lit cubicle. I show you the, 26% body fat beer gut guy. Like I show you what normal life looks like. And you're like, oh, fuck, that's bad, right? You knew it, but nobody had told you it. And that's what kind of like a douche does. And it's like in these certain areas where it's hot button topics, that's where you see like the douche quality come out because it's that not give a fuck energy.
I mean, even the year of
and you're going to watch Piers here just fall apart.
They had killed hundreds of Palestinians that year. It was the bloodiest year for kids. So that was a reply to what had been happening.
But when you say that October the 7th wasn't as bad as people have said, what do you mean by that? Because from Hamas's own boasting through their GoPro cameras, they mutilated, burned alive, raped and abused, beheaded some people, set fire to homes. They kidnapped babies. They kidnapped Holocaust survivors, grandparents. They did just about every act of depravity it is possible to do. And they didn't just do it. They gleefully posted it on social media and the internet so that we could all watch in real time the horrors that they were perpetrating. It's hard to imagine a more horrific act than what happened that day. Why would you try to downplay it?
Well, I mean, there was only 2 babies killed from what I was told, and one was in the hospital, and the other one was shot by a bullet. There was no baby.
Also notice right here, again, like Piers loads this thing up. And again, I'm not making a statement of if Piers was like correct or incorrect about this. But notice Piers loads this whole thing up on him and Dan just absorbs it with no emotion. And what you're going to watch is over the course of this interview and is Piers unraveling emotionally and Dan just staying grounded in the frame, right? This is one of the big points I want to make about this is like the douche is in his own frame. And what happens is everybody eventually starts coming around to him. Like I promise you, like by the end of this interview, Piers Morgan had this, it clearly has this emotional reaction to Dan Bilzerian, like cannot stand him. But I promise you, if like they were around each other long enough, because Piers has accepted the feminine frame here, he's in the very emotional kind of reactive position here. Over time, Piers would come around to really like Dan. It doesn't even mean he would necessarily agree with him. He would just like him because that feminine energy that Piers is giving off likes this masculine grounded energy of Dan. This is also why these kinds of guys get women. They're not apologetic. And you'll see like a lot of times when it comes to dating, women really get attracted to this guy who's like unbearable at first to them. Like they can't stand him. He says shit they don't like. He acts in a way that they don't like. And they're always trying to change him and control him. And he's always just like, fuck it. Like, fuck you. I'll do what I want kind of stuff. And eventually they just come around to this. Like genuinely, I think the best relationships I've had with women have started with them finding me detestable in some way. They're just like, this guy curses too much, or he's, using Zens, or he's doing like whatever, right? He's just doing something that I don't approve of. And I just don't care. And eventually they come around and they just start taking on my mannerisms and my beliefs, right? That's kind of how the douche does. And so you'll see like Piers is trying to like look at this a layer deep, look at this under the facts, because what really happens in debates is we're doing a frame battle here. We're seeing who's actually like daddy in the situation. And I know this might seem crazy, but this is literally what's happening in basically every interaction you're in. If somebody starts losing and getting into emotion, they have given the other person the position of daddy in the interaction. Because daddy's the one, like when you're growing up, it's the kids can get emotional, the wife can get emotional, the mother, but the dad stays grounded. And he's like, no means no, kid. I told you what to do. I'm not fucking discussing this with you. It's that grounded energy. That energy is really what wins every debate. This is also why, like, again, in 2016, when Trump won the election, there were psychologists and body language experts who said Trump's going to win because he has the frame. Because he's non-emotional, right? Like he could say the thing. Like we'll probably do another one of these on Trump's 2016 political campaign because it's another great example of douche behavior and like how he managed the frame and how he was completely unemotional. But you'll just see like what the douche does is he gets everyone else in their feelings because he's just not backing off and he's not apologizing. He's not conforming. He's not trying to be nice and he's not emotional. And everyone just starts getting ramped up around him. And then eventually they like him because he just will not back off. I'm telling you.
Babies in ovens. There was no, beheaded people that I saw. You know, the rapes were disproven. So all that was Israeli propaganda. And the problem is Israel has continued to lie and lie and lie, and they've been caught lying. And they're the only ones that have actually been caught red-handed raping prisoners. And they've done it. And the people that raped the prisoners were now heroes, and they got released, and there was nothing that happened to them. So I think it's very hypocritical to focus on things that they're doing and then try and blame them, you know, on Hamas or the Palestinians.
It's interesting,
you know,
because
just, to me, total bullshit. It's just Israeli propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, listen, many people will listen to you and think that what you're spewing is bullshit propaganda from the other side. And the reason I say that is you say there was no raping or abuse of women, and yet the UN Special Representative on Sexual Violence in Conflict, Pramila Patten, reported in March this year that there was clear and convincing information that Israeli hostages in Gaza experienced sexual violence, including rape, sexualized torture, and cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment, and reasonable grounds to believe such abuse is ongoing. There was also reasonable grounds to believe that conflict-related sexual violence occurred during the 7th of October attacks in multiple locations across Gaza periphery, including rape and gang rape in at least 3 locations. So when you say it didn't happen, what you're really saying is you think that the United Nations report into all this, which established it absolutely did happen and was horrific, is what? Is a pack of lies? And if so, why would the United Nations lie?
Look, I wasn't there, but I have, you know, seen articles that said that it did not happen. So, you know, if it did happen, that's terrible. And I think that's, you know, atrocious. I don't ever believe in rape, but, you know.
I think actually Piers is absolutely right on this one. I will give Piers that. Like, I mean, he just spit some facts, and Dan doesn't really have a great rebuttal for it. But you'll also notice, and this is a good point, is like Dan doesn't like start backtracking and apologizing and all this stuff. He's just like, I mean, yeah, if that happened, then yeah, it happened. Again, like my point with this was not to like be like Dan Bilzerian is like the orator of the Middle East or something, but you'll just notice like even when he's kind of proven wrong a bit, he's like, I mean, I saw articles that said different, and then he's like, if that happened, that sucks, right? Like he owns that basically. He's not emotional, right? Piers gives him this. He doesn't start resorting to ad hominem attacks. He doesn't start getting emotional and complaining. He's just like, I mean, I didn't know it. I read articles, and this is what the articles said, right? So you get what I'm saying? And also, we're going to be able to tell in the comment section who's a real douche or not, because if you start seeing someone just flying off the handle with insults and things like that, then they're clearly not a douche, because I know this is going to fire some people up on both sides, right? If you see somebody doing that, then they're not a douche, right? Because they can't keep their emotions under control. They're reactive.
During, you know, Sabra and Shatia, there was a, you know, girl raped in front of her father. And, you know, that's happened on the other side numerous times. I mean, it happened in the prison. I mean, they were literally rioting because they felt like they had the right to rape these prisoners. So to me, I think it's a bit hypocritical. You can't believe that you have the right to rape prisoners and then complain about them raping, you know, your civilians as well. So I don't think it just can only go one way. I think it's atrocious on both sides.
You said Hamas are not terrorists, are an army fighting for their country against the worst terror organization on the planet. And yet Hamas were given power in Gaza in 2005. They were given billions of dollars, a lot of it in a very suspect manner by Benjamin Netanyahu and his government, because he wanted to create a rift between Palestinian groups, and I completely accept that. But there's no doubt from what has now emerged that Hamas spent most of that money not on benefiting the lives of Palestinian people in Gaza, but on building an elaborate tunnel system and arming themselves to the teeth so that they could perpetrate this act of horror on October the 7th in a strike against Israel that they hope would decapitate Israel. I'm just curious why you would go out of your way. You know, you say you've read things, but you're a guy of big influence. You've got a big following, 30-odd million people on Instagram. You know, I with respect, and I say this respectfully, I understand why you want to support the Palestinian cause, and I'm sure there'll be many points of agreement we would have on that. But just to say, well, I read somewhere there were no rapes and abuse, it doesn't seem to me like you've really studied, or perhaps don't even want to study, the facts about all this, because it would go against your own narrative. Would that be fair?
I mean, look, I got no dog in this fight, Piers. I'm not Palestinian. You know, I'm not Muslim.
Notice again his very Piers sets this up, and again, I think Piers asks a valid question here, but like he ends it with the barb, right? He's just like, are you just ignorant intentionally? Do you want to actually know about this kind of stuff? And Dan's just like, oh yeah, whatever. Like he's just kind of like, you know, like he's just, again, non-emotional. This is how you have to react to this stuff. The douche isn't always right, but he's definitely not emotional. He uses his logical brain, and then if he's wrong, he's willing to accept that and figure out how he needs to change.
I'm just saying what I believe is right, and let's just say
right there, he said, I'm just saying what I believe is right. Okay, and like this is why like it's a big free speech thing, guys. Like you can't be a douche and believe in censorship.
there was rapes. I mean, I think that's terrible. But like I said, they are, an occupied state, and they're operating in apartheid. So when you are kept in an open air prison, there's going to be resistance, and how that resistance manifests itself is, it's going to be violent eventually. I mean, if you kill enough people and you take enough land and you treat people like second-class citizens, and and you're stealing land in the West Bank, and you're just basically, encroaching these people's human rights on a daily basis, there's going to be repercussions. So, I'm not going to be the judge or jury, and I'm not going to condemn these people for fighting back. I think nobody had an issue with, South African apartheid and their resistance. So I don't know why there's an issue with the resistance in the clear apartheid that's going on here.
You went on a Patrick Bet-Davis podcast. He's a friend of this show. You said the Jews killed JFK and that Israel wanted October the 7th to happen so that Israel, had a reason to take the land. Let's just discuss those two things. What do you mean the Jews killed JFK?
So I believe that was an Israeli Mossad operation, and they've committed multiple false flag attacks. I mean, they've, the USS Liberty, you've got the Levin affair. I mean, so they've got a history of doing this, and I don't think it's crazy to think that they were involved in that assassination, and that's the reason that Trump didn't want to, release those files. And I think clearly it had to be embarrassing. Otherwise, why wouldn't he want to release it? And that's the only thing that I could think of that would be embarrassing, because everybody from that time is pretty much dead by now. So it would make sense. I mean, they wanted to cut off, it's now AIPAC, but the Zionist, organization that was doing all the funding that should have been registered as a foreign entity. And, he wanted to register them under FARA. He wanted to, take away their ability to have nukes. And, they didn't like that. So I believe that they killed JFK.
But just to be clear, I mean, you have absolutely no evidence that any Jews killed JFK, do you? Nothing.
Well, I mean, that's not true. I mean, Jack Rubenstein, that was the person that killed the supposed Patsy Lee Harvey Oswald. I mean, he was a Jewish mob guy. And, there's been numerous documentaries tying the, Jewish mafia, the CIA. I mean, I wasn't there, but everything that I've seen evidence-wise points to Israel. Really? And they're doing it in Epstein Island. They did it in Epstein Island. I mean,
Yeah, but here's the problem I have with this. You say everything you've seen, right? It just seems to me like you see a lot of conspiracy theory stuff. I've read a lot about the JFK assassination. There is zero evidence that any Jews killed John F. Kennedy. Zero. Unless you want to go off into some mad conspiracy theory rabbit hole. And I say to you that you make these big statements and you have a huge following of people, many of whom will think, well, wow, if Dan Bilzerian says it, maybe it's true. And that way, I would argue, this is how a lot of conspiracy theory stuff in the end gets propagated and promoted to the detriment of society, because people like you who are very smart, there's no question of that, and very successful and made a lot of money being very successful. I'm just curious why you want to be so inflammatory without actually having any evidence. And as you say, to just sit back and say, well, I wasn't there. Well, I wasn't there. Obviously, I wasn't even born. But I know that there's no credible evidence that Jewish people killed JFK. And yet you just say it as a fact, as if somehow we should just believe this.
This is the frame battle going on, because there is actually like evidence of that kind of thing, of Israel's involvement in that kind of thing. But I don't want to get into that. But this is really just a frame battle that's getting ready to happen here. Piers is lobbing up a frame, and Dan is lobbing up a frame. They're again, like, it doesn't matter. The facts don't matter. What matters is who's reacting to who. This is how the douche handles. This is like a douche in real life. It's about who is reacting to who in a certain situation. And you're going to clearly see, like, I mean, this is, a valid logical argument from Piers. Dan's produced some valid logical arguments, but what's happening underneath the surface is who is daddy in a situation. The douche puts himself in that position of being daddy. He's non non-emotional. He's not reactive to things. And you're just seeing Piers is going to get more and more reactive, even with this kind of thing. Like he's trying to get Dan to bend, right? The way Dan loses this argument isn't by losing on logic. We do not care. Human beings do not care about logic nearly as much as we think. We care about our tribe, and we care about being with the winner. This is what we care about. It's like everybody already has their pre-planned opinion of how this debate went. The people who are on pro-Israel side have their opinion. The people on the pro-Gaza side have their opinion of it. Everybody's already picked a camp on this. So it's not about that. It's about who was dominant in the situation, who was daddy. And the one who's daddy is the one who's non-emotional about it, right? We are not, like, very rarely do you find a debate between two people where both of them were just non-emotional the entire time and just debated logical points, shook hands, and went their separate ways. That never happens, guys. It's just who stayed grounded. And as a douche, you want to learn to, when people are trying to lob these frames at you, because what Piers is trying to get him to do is try and get Dan to change his frame, because Dan's frame, again, is absolute certainty, because the douche is always in a frame of absolute certainty. And so Dan is in this frame where he's just convinced of his beliefs, and Piers is lobbing this thing up, and he's trying to get Dan to question his frame and jump into Piers's frame, essentially, and be like, yeah, I guess I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe I did jump into the conspiracy, or start getting emotional, right? Because if he did start feeling threatened and attacked internally by Piers, what he'd do is he would start going to ad hominem attacks on Piers. And what would an ad hominem attack on Piers look like? It would look like you're bought off by Israel. You are, you're a shill for the Jews. Like, he would start going into this kind of shit that you'll hear people say when, like, because like this comes again on both sides, like, right? Like, I'm not trying to make a political point here. Like I said, like, there are people who every time somebody says something they disagree with, they just accuse that person of being a Jewish shill or something. That is an ad hominem attack. That is somebody who does not have frame. They are being emotional. They're trying to instigate an argument on emotional terms, like a woman, with the other person. You'll notice he does not do this. We're getting ready to play this. He does not get into emotions, right?
No, I didn't say it as a fact. I said that's what I believe. And if you look at, the history of people that have criticized Israel, Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein.
Right. See, look, he stays grounded. He didn't go, well, you're just bought off by Israel. That's why you're saying that, right? He didn't do that. He doesn't go to that.
JFK, Nixon, they all have similar fates. And so I don't think that's a coincidence. I also think that today a lot of, quote unquote conspiracy theories have all come true. So, about 2-3 years ago, being a conspiracy theorist, you were a nut job, wacko, whatever. And now it's just like every single one of them seems to be coming to fruition. So I don't know. I mean, I think once you see the government lie to you on a scale like they did during COVID, you start questioning a lot of things. And I think it's healthy to question things. And I think one of the big reasons why I've marched down this path so far is because once I started questioning Israel and once I started speaking out against Israel, I saw the ramifications and I saw the pushback. And the side of right is usually never the side that's silencing people. The people that are on the right side of history are not the ones trying to, cut off free speech.
See how this is, again, a sober, non-emotional answer. He's just saying something, right? He's stating his case again, right? If Piers had managed to stay non-emotional in this debate, then they could have walked away at peace with it, right? And it's like, that's how it should be as grown men, right? Like, if you talk to another grown man and he says something, you cannot manage your emotions enough to just have an honest disagreement with him, then you're a fucking child, right? Like, you have to be able to, like, be in that space, right? Like, I have friends who disagree with me on certain opinions that I have, and I'm still friends with them, right? I don't get emotional about it. It's that feminine energy to get really emotional when somebody it has frame over you. And, like, that's basically what he's doing right here. Piers is losing the frame. He's getting completely unhinged and emotional as we go further into this. And you'll see he's going to run out of ammo to attack Dan. And so he just goes into ad hominem attacks built on emotion.
Or punish people for what they say.
You think the Jews killed Gaddafi as well?
Israel. I think that they have way too much control in our government. And I think it is not coincidence that everybody that's been critical of Israel has, either been overthrown, Shah of Iran, like every single person that's been critical of Israel has either been killed or thrown out of power. And I don't think that is a coincidence. I mean, the reason we fought a lot of these wars is because of Israel. I mean, Israel lied to us. They told us that there was weapons of mass destruction.
I'm almost still playing this to this point just so you guys train your douche muscle, because I know a lot of you are going to be emotional about this on either side. You're going to think Pierce is an idiot, or you're going to think Dan is an idiot, and you're going to have this lashed out emotional reaction. I'm almost still playing this just so you guys like train your douche muscle here. Listen with your rational mind to argument. Do not get your feelings involved, right? Whatever you think, whoever you think made a fair point, why can't we as men just say whatever we think is true, right? They throw these ad hominem attacks at the douche for everything. You're going to get this if you're a douche on all sides, right? Doesn't matter what it is. It can be, again, it can be on politics. It can be on relationship, right? Like, if you don't go all down the normal relationship path, you decide you're going to date non-exclusively or something like that, you are going to get people calling you a misogynist. You are going to get people saying you should settle down. You're a player. You're a bad person. All these ad hominem attacks. You have to learn to not be dragged down into this shit and see it for what it is, right? Like I could talk to somebody who's married and pro-marriage. I actually had somebody over at my house today who is as a married guy. I'm sure he disagrees with my take on marriage, right? And we can be like adults and talk about it like adults. You know what I mean? Like, I don't hate the guy for his disagreement with me. He doesn't have to accuse me of shit, right? We have logical male conversation, right? And you just have to like not get your feelings involved in shit. It's so important to train this ability.
You know, we fought many wars on their behalf, so their influence cannot be, you know, disputed. And
like, part of you and some of you are going to think we shouldn't have this conversation because it's too beyond the veil. And again, I say we are grown men. Why can't we talk about whatever we want to talk about? And if it's a bad idea, prove that it's a bad idea. And that's really how this works.
The people that we continuously fight just happen to be their natural enemies, and they have influence on what we do. And that's my biggest issue. That's actually one of the reasons why I kind of like started marching down this path, is because I see how much control Israel has over our government, and it's not healthy. And I see our politicians acting on behalf of Israel instead of on behalf of what is best for the United States. And that is, you know, as a veteran, where I really have fucking, you know, huge problems with this.
I'm sure you did, but when you say that what was it you said, that the Jewish people said there were weapons of mass destruction? I mean, it was President Bush. He's not Jewish. It was Colin Powell. He wasn't Jewish, as far as I'm aware. What are you talking about? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you're talking about 0.2% of the population. So obviously every single person in there is not Jewish, but it is benefiting Jewish interests, and we are operating on behalf of Israel. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying all of our politicians are Jewish, obviously, but what I am saying is that Israel has dirt and blackmail on our politicians. That's the only way to explain why they put the interests of Israel above our countries. And
I'm going to keep hammering on this, but note, like, you have to understand, like, the things Dan Bilzerian is saying, you know, are going to incite people, and you know he knows that, but how he's able to, one, have Piers kind of like attack and a bit, and know that he's saying shit that is going to get him in all kinds of hot water, and he is just so, like, in his own frame about it. He's like, I don't give a fuck. Right? He's in charge mentally of himself. He's not worried about what other people think. He's very in that alpha space. That is what the douche does.
You see that. I mean, look, I truly believe that Epstein Island was a Mossad operation, and they have dirt on our politicians, and they've done plenty of these, and that is why they control our country. I mean, explain it out. Why else would our country be doing everything in Israel's benefit to our own detriment? Israel doesn't do anything for us. Why would we be doing that?
But we know why America, and the UK for that matter, Tony Blair, because I spoke to him about it at length at the time. We know why they went to war with Saddam Hussein in 2003. They went because they believed he had weapons of mass destruction. They were the ones who argued it. None of the senior people that argued it for America or the UK, in terms of Tony Blair, George Bush, Colin Powell, were Jewish. This idea that somehow Israel was orchestrating that war, I think, is completely nonsensical. I mean, my brother fought in that war for the British Army. He wasn't ordered into that war by Israel. It was a decision taken by George Bush and
part of me has to keep my mouth shut, because like it's not about the debate. It's about the undertone, right? So like, I have to keep my mouth shut on stuff he says sometimes.
Blair. It just seems to me that when people have accused you, if they have, of being anti-Semitic, this is the reason why. It's because you look everywhere for a reason to blame Israel for absolutely everything, even when there's no evidence that it was Israel involved in the actual orders that were taken. There is no evidence that Israel ordered the Iraq War. It was taken by George Bush's administration with the help of people like Tony Blair.
Well, we went there because Netanyahu.
Also, like, see, like, this is, again, classic frame. Piers makes a statement that directly challenges Dan's frame, right? He says that there was no proof that Israel had anything to do with us going over there. This is a direct challenge to Dan's frame. And again, Dan does not take the bait and get emotional. This is what I want you guys to start noticing. You're going to notice this in conversation. You're going to especially notice it with women. This happens all the time with women. They will do things to see if you're going to take the bait and you're going to comply with them. They're constantly looking for this because the woman doesn't want to be with a guy who's super compliant. So they do these things and they don't even know they're doing it. It's subconscious. It's called a shit test, where they basically see if like you're really grounded in yourself and you're in control of yourself. So like you might be like, we're going to go eat at this restaurant. And she's like, I don't want to eat there. That place doesn't taste good. We should eat here. And she's basically just testing to see like if you're going to like take the bait, you're going to get emotional and reactive to her. That's basically what's happening in these kinds of situations. You might tell a girl like, hey, I'm going to take you out this weekend. And maybe she's like, oh, are you? And she says something like that. She's just seeing like, do you mean what you just said? Or you could be like, I mean, we could go out. Like I was just offering, right? Like you start on this bullshit where you're supplicating or something like that. This is where, again, like having that frame, people are lobbing shit at you all the time as a douche. You have to not take the bait. They're going to say, if you don't get into a relationship, they are going to tell you that you are a bad person. And you don't take the bait and get defensive and all this kind of stuff. They are going to say, I mean, I had to deal with this when I dropped out of college. They're telling you you're making a bad decision. They're going to tell you need to get a job and all this stuff when you're trying to build your business and it's not working out. And you have to just be non-reactive and be like, this is my life. I'm the fucking boss here. I'll do what I think's right. I don't give a fuck what you guys think. You have to develop this mindset.
Who testified in front of Congress that they had weapons of mass destruction, which was a total lie. And it was a lie to benefit Israel because that was an enemy of Israel. So what I'm saying is they're the beneficiary of what we are doing. And it's not in the best interest of the United States. So clearly they've got control over our politicians.
Yeah. To be clear again, though.
I'm not saying our politicians are Jewish. I'm saying our politicians are doing what they're telling them to do.
Right. Well, that's slightly different to what you did say. When you said on Patrick Bet-David's podcast as well, they play the victim card so effing much about Jewish people. I mean, do you not understand why Jewish people might feel a sense of victimhood, given that 6 million of them were killed in World War II by a genocidal monster in the Holocaust? Do you not understand why that might make Jewish people feel that, yes, they have indeed been victims?
Yeah, I mean, that figure's been revised, but, you know, I believe that Jewish supremacy is the greatest threat to America. And I think it's the greatest threat to the world today.
Oh, my God. This is just funny. It's just so funny just because you just see the look on his face and the level of not give a fuck while he says, like, the thing that's, like, the most politically incorrect thing you can possibly say. And he just says it with, like, no fucks given on his face. You can just see, like, he's just like, oh, yeah, like, whatever. Like, he's just no filter. I fucking love that, man. Again, like I don't fucking know how many people died in the Holocaust, but like it's just funny. It's just so funny and refreshing to see people who will just say the thing. They'll just say what they think's true, and they're just not worried about the repercussion of it. And you can tell we're craving this because Kanye can drop a song called Heil Hitler, and everybody's looking to download it off. Like they can ban it everywhere, and people are still playing it and stuff like that. So you can tell like there's this craving spirit in human beings where everybody is like craving that sort of like no filtered approach of the douche. And this is why I said in the one video, the arc of history bends towards the douche. The douche is always, in the end, his willingness to be politically incorrect, to say the thing. And this is not to be like a troll. Like, we're not saying shit just to say it. We're saying shit we believe, right? It can be right, it can be wrong, but we're saying what we believe. And like the douche's willingness to do that, just like it endears so much respect from people because he's just bucking the system and he's standing up to that PC kind of thing in all of us where like we want to like kowtow our opinions. We want to feel uncomfortable. We want to feel hesitant to say things and like just be nice and supplicate. And the douche just says fuck all of that. And again, you might be like, I don't know if I could ever get to this level. This is a progression, right? I'm not 100% comfortable with this. Like we're working our way towards this goal of just full on douche maxed behavior, guys. That's what we're working ourselves towards, whatever that looks like for you. And it's just a process of training that not give a fuck muscle, basically. Over and over again, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to go all in on it. Fuck it. We ball. Let's do this shit, right? That kind of energy.
I truly believe that.
What do you mean the figure's been revised? What do you mean?
Well, they said that it was 4 million that died in Auschwitz, and then they said it was down to 1 million. So they've revised the figure.
Well, how many people? How many people do you think were killed in the Holocaust?
271,000 that died in Auschwitz.
How many do you think were killed in the Holocaust?
I don't know, but I would bet my entire net worth that it was under 6 million.
This so it's just like
ask you, Dan, what's the motivation for making claims like that? What do you stand to gain by trying to diminish what happened?
See, now he's not arguing with him logically, right? He's not arguing with him logically. And so he's going to start throwing emotional shit out there. What do you stand to gain from this? And again, they're going to do this to you. You've probably, like, if you look back on your life, you probably made a stand at some point in your life that went against certain people and they did this shit to you. They just start throwing these barbs in there and they're trying to get you reactive.
In World War II.
They don't even know they're trying to get you reactive, but that's what they're doing.
I'm just answering your question. I mean, I'm a gambler, so if I think that something is a low probability, then I would bet on it. And I don't know for a fact, but the evidence all says that it was less than 6 million. I mean, just the mathematics don't work. Like, you can't cremate that many bodies. Like the whole gas chamber thing, it's a very ineffective way to kill people. So when people have researched this and
I'm like, guys, like I am a pretty big douche, and even like I feel a little uncomfortable watching this. That's how politically incorrect this is, and he's just sitting there not giving a fuck and just saying it. Like it's like that level of not give a fuck is so fucking like inspiring. Again, it's not about it's not about anything he says. It's literally just about him not giving a fuck. And that muscle to just speak your fucking truth without apology is so fucking important, guys.
And they've done the due diligence. They said it's mathematically impossible.
You see, I'm sorry, but I just find that unbelievably offensive, and I'm not even Jewish.
Right there, see it. Now we're into the emotional stuff. Like, he made a decent point. He said the studies and people have said it. The Red Cross numbers. Like, he presents facts. You can argue with his facts if you want, but again, he doesn't have a rebuttal for this. And so now you see Piers going into emotion. So this is when the ad hominem attacks really start ramping up.
Again, there is clear evidence that 6 million people, almost predominantly Jewish, were killed in the Holocaust. 12 million were killed by the Nazis in total. They were a genocidal monstrosity, the Nazis, who wanted to eliminate the Jewish.
He also, again, he says there's clear evidence, but he doesn't cite anything, right? He doesn't start citing sources the way like Dan was like Red Cross this and again, it's like, again, if there are sources out there and you want to cite them, that's fine. My point is like, Piers, what is happening to Piers is his frame is getting tested. Piers has a worldview, and Dan's worldview clashes with it massively. And Piers is just saying shit to try and defend his worldview, but he doesn't have like a real backing, he's finding out now. And so this is why he starts going into this is offensive and this kind of thing. Right? You've probably, I mean, we've all sort of been in these types of situations, and it's just a thing you want to train out of yourself is that, you've probably got some deeply held belief and you don't know why you have that belief, but it's in there and somebody says something and your first reaction is to get offended because they challenged it. I used to have this about World War II. Like, I mean, I've always, as an American, I always thought World War II was like the hero story of America, right? It was like the origin story of the American Empire. It's this great thing. And then somebody would say something about it that disagreed with my perspective on it. And I could tell my immediate reaction was to get kind of offended by it. And it wasn't because the thing's offensive. Words are not offensive, right? Unless they're actually intentionally, if I look at you, I'm like, hey, you're a bitch, then yeah, I meant to offend you. But if it's just like I'm stating a fact or something I believe, that's not offensive, right? You getting offended is your ego getting hurt because your beliefs are being challenged, right? And so somebody would say this kind of thing about World War II to me, and I would get bothered by it. I'd be like, I could tell like my reaction to be like, oh, fuck this, and like put my guard up and be like, this guy, fuck this guy, you know, like, and just, but I really couldn't defend it. But what was happening is somebody said something that challenged my frame, and so I reacted. Not very douche of me, right? It's something you have to train out of yourself over time.
People, and they tried extremely
You
hard to
said
do
12
that.
million were killed?
The Nazis killed 12 million people in World War II. 6 million were killed in
You said 12?
6 million were killed in the Holocaust. Or do you not believe that either?
Okay. I mean, Jews have killed far more Christians. Well, Jews have killed far more. Let's just accept the 6 million figure. Jews have killed far more Christians than that. I mean, it's not even close. If you look at the Bolshevik genocide, you look at the Holodomor, I mean, they've killed way more Christians. I mean, they basically invented the genocide. So, you know, they deny the Armenian genocide. Israel denies that. They've lobbied the U.S. to deny that. I'm Armenian. They killed half of my people. So, you know, and I'm not offended by that. You know, if somebody questions that, it's not some crazy thing. I mean, Israel denies the Armenian Holocaust. Okay.
It sounds to me, Dan, like you do actually hate Jewish people.
See, here we go again. Ad hominem attacks. Like he's saying shit that like if you're not a douche, you are gonna get like flagrantly offended by. But like he's just so in his frame. And like again, why is it offensive to say this? Is he emotional? Does Dan Bilzerian strike you as being emotional in what he's saying? He's just saying what he thinks is true. There's no emotion either way, right? If he was like venomously saying shit and he's just angry and emotional and you can tell he's emotional, then yeah, that's one thing. Like he's not being a douche in that case. He's just being hateful. And he's usually, if you're being hateful, it's because you're hurt by something, right? You feel like threatened or something. Your ego's been hurt. So now you're being hateful. You're lobbing out at somebody. You're like, something has caused you to get emotional. He's not emotional when he's saying this kind of stuff. So it's not like it's not really offensive in that sense. You get what I'm saying? He's just saying what he thinks unapologetically. That's what a douche does. And if you disagree, you can disagree and you can argue, but Piers can't handle this. You can see Piers has absolutely hit his limit on tolerance for things that disagree with his worldview. And he is like, his wheels are starting to spin. And I kind of get it from Piers's perspective, because I'm telling you, like, it is tough to train this muscle where you don't get offended by things. But you have to, as a douche, you just cannot be getting reactive to people saying things. Like, think about it for a second. You're going through your daily life. Let's say you're watching this video and it's getting you offended right now. That means that I was able to, by playing this video, get you completely emotionally moved off center. What kind of man lets another man move him off his emotional center that easily? Do you understand why that's actually totally ridiculous? And that's my point with this, is just like, you cannot be in this emotional headspace all the time. You cannot be reacting to people. You cannot let words bother you. And that is what the douche frame is all about. That's what the douche mentality is all about. You are centered in yourself. Nobody can move you off center. Nobody's going to tell you how to see the world. Nobody's going to tell you how to think. Nobody's going to tell you what you can say. Nobody's going to move you emotionally. Nobody's going to tell you how to feel, right? That's what that is. People will tell you, you should be offended by this. Why should I be offended by it? It's words. Do you get what I'm saying here? Like, you have a choice about all of this, and the douche chooses himself. He chooses to be centered in himself, okay? You don't have to be bothered by anything. I think it was Marcus Aurelius who said you have control over yourself, not external events. Realize this and you have power. That's like the douche's like main motto.
No, I believe that Jewish supremacy is the greatest threat to the world today.
And see, again, Dan gets us insulted. Piers is attacking him. He's offensive. This is ridiculous. You're just anti-Semitic. The tropes start coming out, and he's not emotional again. He's just like, no, I just like he can't even process the idea that he would step into Piers's emotional frame and let Piers bother him. The idea that Piers's opinion matters to him at all just doesn't even comprehend to him.
I look at what they're doing in the media. They're pushing this transgender nonsense. I mean, and they did it in Germany. The first
we're going to skip ahead here for just a second because there's a couple things that I want to watch real quick.
Do you accept, Dan, that you are just blatantly anti-Semitic?
Look,
Right. See, right there, like, again, he's just like lobbed that up. That was like a last gasp. I'm going to get you to react emotionally kind of thing. That's what he's trying to do to Pierce. He's like, I'm going to lob this fucking insult up at you and just see if I can get you to fucking react to me finally. And again, it just bounces right off him. No emotion involved.
I have an issue with that term. I mean, I think the real Semites are the Palestinians. I mean, they.
In fact, he doubles down on the frame. He doubles down on the frame, right? He not only does he not kowtow to Pierce, he says, I see you and I fucking raise you, right? He said, not only am I not going to say I'm anti-Semitic, but I'm also going to say that I don't even think that I think the Palestinians are the real Semites. Do you see, like, this is frame, guys? And again, I picked the most offensive way to describe this to you on purpose, but just think about this in normal life, right? Think about when a girl tells you to do something. Think about, like, you know, like I knew this one guy one time, and he said his wife wouldn't let him use Zen pouches. And I told him, I was like, if my fucking girlfriend or wife ever told me I wasn't allowed to use Zen pouches, I would go buy them right there and put them in. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's that like, who the fuck are you to tell me what to think, to tell me what to do kind of thing? If you try me, I'm just going to double down. Trump's great at this. Like, if you cross Trump, he even said this about the wall, right? I remember Mexico was complaining about the wall, and he was like, the wall just got 10 feet taller. It's that kind of energy. It's like, you're not fucking telling daddy what to do, right? That's kind of the energy. So, like, he's not moved 1 inch off his frame. You get what I'm saying? I'm telling you, if Piers and Dan hung out for like a year, probably even less than that. Truthfully, like, if Piers and Dan hung out for like 12, 14 hours off camera, like they just hung out, Piers would be super bitter about it. But over time, he would just come to like Dan for Dan's unapologetic nature. He wouldn't even necessarily agree with him, but he would almost just laugh at Dan for being Dan, because he would, as the guy in the feminine role here, because Piers is more in the feminine here, he would just start to feel comfortable in Dan's grounded masculinity, and he would actually get submissive around Dan. I'm not saying he'd be like gay for him. It's not like that, but just like his energy would be very feminine around him, where he'd be very submissive to him. And if you're dealing with a woman in this context, they do get attracted to this. You get what I'm saying? It's like, this is it. Like, they want to get grounded in that fact that they cannot move you off center at all. That's the douche cannot be moved off center.
You know, the DNA test that they've done on the Israelis that are living over there, they're Eastern European Ashkenazi Jews. I don't even think they're actual Semites. They don't have ancient Hebrew DNA, which is why DNA testing is illegal in Israel.
I mean, you're literally denying their existence now. I mean, you are just a brazen anti-Semite.
Here we go. Right? Like, he didn't refute anything he said. And again, I'm not saying, I keep making this point because I know people are gonna get all fucking offended. I really should stop doing it and make you just like get over your offense, because there's nothing to be offended by here. But you should really, really, he didn't refute anything that Dan said. You get what I'm saying? Like, he didn't refute anything he said. He just goes back to the ad hominem attack because he's just trying to control the frame. And you'll notice every debate resorts to this eventually. Like, somebody just starts trying to get the other person moved off center because they have no case.
Don't you? You hate Jewish people. You hate Israel. You hate the state of Israel, its government, everything about it.
And he doesn't care. Look at his face. Like, he does not care. Dan does not give a fuck. There's no, like, he just got like insulted like 6 ways to fucking Sunday. And it's just like, whatever. Because again, the only way to deal with this kind of situation is to be non-reactive. You know what I'm saying? If somebody punches you in the face, yeah, you punch them back, but you don't even do it from a reactive state, right? The person who punched was the reactive one most likely. But like, when you're dealing with words and things like that, like, somebody's throwing this at you, the way you deal with it is just not rolling in the mud with the pigs. And the douche just doesn't do it. The douche just stays rational because he doesn't let people move him off center because he doesn't give a fuck what they think.
You blame them in this interview for literally absolutely everything.
When you say
ad hominem again, you're blaming him for everything. He hasn't blamed him for everything. He might have blamed him for stuff that you don't think they should be blamed for, but he didn't blame him for everything. So he's just throwing shit out there. He's trying to just like lob shit up now.
Well, I think most of the problems today is caused by.
And again, he will not back off it.
I'm honestly gobsmacked that you would say all this publicly, given what a high profile you have.
He's trying so many different ways to get him moved.
Yeah, I mean, it is not a it's not a popular opinion for somebody that
He's just
cares
whatever.
about money.
He's
and
whatever.
Cares about not being canceled. I mean, that's the problem. Is you can say whatever you want against Muslims. You can be.
And again, he goes right into the douche point. It's like, it's a problem to say this stuff if you care about money, if you care about getting canceled. The douche doesn't care. The douche can have a shit ton of money and lose it. Kanye has lost like billions of dollars over things he said. Trump lost all kinds of money. Trump nearly went to jail. Trump got shot for the things he said. You have to just be like, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to say what I say. I'm going to stand on my truth. You are not going to move me out of my worldview, which is my frame, which is me at the center of my life. I'm at cause in my life, okay?
Be, super anti-Muslim. You can talk about them and nobody cares. But if you say anything about Jewish people, you get canceled. They, look what they did to Kanye. I mean, so why are they such a protected class? Let me ask you that.
I don't think they are. I think they're a class that get targeted by people like you, and indeed by Kanye, who spewed horrible anti-Semitic nonsense. But yours seems to me to be more insidious, because you're literally blaming. You're literally blaming. With respect, let me finish.
Not the other way around.
You're literally blaming Jewish people for almost everything that's happened that you don't like in the world. That is the purest personification of anti-Semitism right there. That's what it is.
Well,
he's just insulting him.
That promotes supremacy.
He's just insulting him, and Dan just sits there, just like doesn't care at all. He doesn't give a fuck because he's just like, Piers, like, you are beneath me, dude. Like, I'm daddy here. Like, you can't make daddy upset. No matter how much the kid tries to insult their parent, the father just doesn't care. He's like, all right, yeah, you done crying? Now go to your fucking room, right? Like, that is daddy energy. It's just so fucking funny, man.
When you have a religion that says that you are better than other people, and when you have a religion that says it's okay to steal from other people as long as they're not Jewish, when you have a religion that says it's okay to rape people that aren't Jewish, when you have a religion that talks about having sex with, kids that are under 3 years old, when you have a religion that promotes these things and promotes supremacy, I think you're going to have
Piers
problems.
pursing
you see
his
that
lips.
in Israel. Israel is a manifestation of that religion, and I think that religion is, it's terrible. I don't believe in white supremacy. I don't believe in Jewish supremacy. I don't believe in supremacy at all. And right now, I think you have massive Jewish supremacy.
You sound like a Nazi.
Again. And he's just like,
why do you say that?
Why do you say that? He's just like, what are you talking about, Piers? It's so fucking funny. Oh my God. Oh, jeez. I think I'm gonna end it right there because you guys get the point. I've been beating this dead horse, but like, I just like, you think about this too, guys, is like, you might think that objectively this is offensive, what he's saying, but I would tell you that like back in 2017 when Trump, or like 2016 when Trump was saying the stuff about Mexico and illegal immigration and all the kind of stuff, like you couldn't get away with saying that shit without people losing their fucking mind. And now that's normalized and mainstreamed, and people don't get emotionally bothered by it unless they're just total fucking quacks, right? And so the point I'm making there is like, you have the choice to be offended or not. And people are getting offended because it challenges their worldview. Whether it's true or not is up for debate. But the point is like, the emotional response is not required. The emotional response is because it's prodding at your worldview and it makes you feel uncomfortable for that, right? And so the douche does not allow that to happen. The douche is grounded in himself. You can say whatever the fuck you want to the douche. He's not moving off it. Even if you insult the douche and try to get him offended, he's not going to get emotionally offended by it. He'll deal with you if he needs to deal with you, but he's not emotional about it, guys. And so like, that's something I want you guys to train. In the most offensive situations, you have to learn to stand your ground. One, that's the first thing I want you to learn from Dan, is that you have to stand on what you believe and not back off it. Just say your truth, whatever the fuck that is. The second thing that you need to do is when people start lobbing these attacks at you and trying to move you off center, you cannot give a fuck. You have to stay grounded in yourself because it's going to happen to you in your life. You have to stay in that grounded, centered place where you are not bothered by what other people say of you emotionally, and you can deal with them logically. And it's because you value yourself more than you value their opinion of you. So I hope this has been an interesting video for you guys. Be sure to like, subscribe. I'll talk to you later.